Hi there, welcome to our latest Five from the Archive. This time it's the wonderful Charlotte Bellamy, who's been such an integral partner of Camversation for years now. It's lovely to see Charlotte's images and hear more about her own story as well. Thanks so much for coming along to this today. And I know we've had it in the diary for a couple of weeks, but you've been so busy. You might want to talk about the kind of things you've been involved with, because I know you've been so busy. But we really enjoy your photography on Camversation. And actually your friendship as well transcends Camversation. It's lovely to have you as a friend and to have met you in real life a few times and to work with you in various different aspects of photography. So thanks very much for coming along. Really
No, it's
appreciate
brilliant.
it.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and sorry it's taken us so long to put this together.
No, not at all. Worth waiting for all the good things, you know that. So, Charlotte, we know you on Camversation really well. We've watched your presentations. You're part of the community, part of the group, and I know we've made lots of connections with people who have watched you on screen and met you in real life in workshops and things. But I'd love to know a little bit more about your own history, your own background, because I feel like I know you, but there's always a little bit more to hear from people as well. There may be more. I don't know. So I wonder if I could pass over to you for a few minutes just to share a little bit of your background, how you got to where you are now, your kind of approaches to photography, and then we'll move on to your 5/6 from the archive, perhaps.
5. It's 5.
5.
Thank you very much. And it's kind of like that first day when you sort of arrive at a course, isn't it? And people say, tell us one thing that nobody knows about you. Well, I could start with that, and I'll tell you that once upon a time when I was 15, I used to prance around in a red catsuit on the back of a horse, and I appeared in Country Life and Daily Mail. So that's my claim to fame. So nobody else will know that at all, but nothing to do with photography. So where did my photography start? I always had a camera, but I, wasn't very serious until we moved to Chicago. Kevin bought me my first digital SLR. So I picked up the camera then and just started photographing everybody's kids at play dates. And then they started offering to pay me for things like Christmas photo shoots. A lot of Americans enjoy making their Christmas cards with children on the front and their family photos. So back in October, I would get the Christmas boxes out under the Christmas tree and fill them with children, basically, and make photos. So that's where my photography career started. That was where I first started making money. And then we moved back to the UK a couple of years later, and I decided to carry on. Now, my start, and I think I say this to most people, my start of my journey was with people, because I love working with people. So I did a lot of photography with portraits, weddings, babies, engagements, pretty much everything. In 2012, we moved to Holland, and I didn't have the language. So what I did was I actually put my camera down for 6 months because I didn't know what to do. And I picked up a mentor from the Guild of Photographers. And she basically took my hand and said, pick up your camera and make photos of absolutely anything you love. Make them for you. And that's still my recommendation to anybody these days that says I'm stuck. I just say, you know what, go out with your camera with no expectations and start from there. And you will find your love again if you don't place expectations on yourself. So that's when my landscape photography journey started, when I arrived here in the Netherlands. And then about 2016, I did my Master Craftsman with the Guild Photographers, and that's when I first put into ICM and multiple exposure photography. And I just fell in love with that. My landscape photography had become perfect technically. It was winning lots of awards, but the soul and the love had gone out of it. It was perfect, but it wasn't, didn't give an emotion. So then I started with the ICM and the multiple exposure. And yeah, I found my thing basically, and that's where it's continued. And I do still enjoy making what I call straight photos, non and wobbly camera photos. But it's there to support the ICM and the multiple exposure. And then during COVID, and I started with photo tours here in the Netherlands, I think 7 years ago now actually. I've been running them ever since. And then during COVID, I went online, like a lot of us did. And that's where I started teaching to the world, basically. And oh my goodness, I still pinch myself now when I get people online from Australia, New Zealand, America, Canada, you name it. I have people there. I've had nobody from Iceland yet, but it's just absolutely amazing to be able to contact with people. So that's, now what I do mostly is teaching and tours. I do a lot of photography myself, try to find time to do my own projects. But yeah, that's where I am now with my photography, a lot of creative photography.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to link a claim to fame there, because not only did you and I meet, I suppose, as a consequence of COVID, but you've got a really loyal following in Israel, and they've joined Camversation as well, which I think is fantastic. So there's a cluster of people who join from Israel as well to add to everybody else who joins on the map, which is just amazing, isn't it? What Zoom offers like that.
Yeah.
Absolutely superb. You said that when you were in Chicago, you focused on people, and that became your kind of raison d'etre, your driving force. And due to a language barrier in Holland, you moved on to something else. Now that you've overcome that language barrier, have you ever moved back into photographing people, or are you firmly into your other aspects of photography now?
No, I do actually still photograph people and I love it. It's not something I promote, but generally by word of mouth, I pick up a few. And I've actually done a few Dutch families recently. So I do that and a bit of corporate head shoots, that kind of thing. And I always do the international school in Arnhem, where my son went to school. I always do hit their prom photography every year. So that's like a wedding on steroids, basically, because you've got 40 students, 40 family photos to do, and the group photos and the actual ceremony photos. And you've got like 40 sets of parents stood behind you when you're making the photos of the group. So it's actually people management as well. It's quite a big one. So, but I love it, absolutely love it. And it's really special to be able to do that and continue to work with the school that my son went to for all those years here. So yeah, so I do still do it, and I have enough language now as well. So it's quite nice.
Yeah, quite a different energy though, isn't it? To going into the landscapes and capturing more creative aspects of landscapes where you are in total control and being in an environment where you are part of a system, I suppose.
Yeah. It doesn't really matter what you do though. You always need to think about the setup and what you're going to do before you get there, or at least have some idea of what you're going to achieve. A bit more necessary with people. You need a quite a good plan. And I do a lot of research before I go and photograph anybody for locations and things like that. But it's not often I go out to the woods and have zero idea of what I'm going to photograph, unless that's the purpose why I'm going, to actually have zero idea and to go completely, eyes closed and then open them when I get there, which I do quite enjoy. And it's actually a completely different way to photograph, to be unprepared and just see what happens.
What's your preference? Are you, and I know we talked about planning before we open, so we won't mention pre-planning, but are you the kind of person that does think, today I'm going to go out and take some photographs and I'm going to go to this location and I've got this in my mind? Or do you prefer the wander and find?
I was going to say, am I a control freak? I'm quite a control freak, to be honest. I do like to have a bit of planning. So it's not often I'll go out with absolutely zero idea, like unless I really, that's really what I want to do. Normally I'll have chosen a lens, or I'll have chosen like something that I want to photograph specifically, because I find otherwise I'm like a butterfly. I just flip from one thing to the next otherwise. So I find that I can come back with a million different individual photos and they don't sit together. And I quite like working in sets and projects. So I quite like to be able to bring back a set and collection of photos that sit together, which I'd find I don't if I just go out and, oh, I like that. Oh, I like that. I'll take landscapes and I'll take trees and I'll take butterflies and bugs and fungi and you name it. Everything will come back and I'll go, so what did I achieve? Well, I'll have enjoyed my trip out. That's a guarantee. There's no substitute for just going out and enjoying the photography. And I'm running a woodland course at the moment this year. And a lot of people have said the biggest thing they get out of it is the fact they're going to the woodland every single month. They have to, well, they don't have to go out, but they make themselves go out to complete the exercises. And therefore they get out and they get out with their camera, regardless of what life throws at them. So I think that's quite important.
And on that notion, I won't keep you on this one, but I'm just really fascinated by that notion of working in themes, because that's something that I struggle to do. And I think there maybe lots of people who struggle to work in themes necessarily to make sure you've got that focus. Is there anything that you do in order to help you get that idea as to what you're going to work on before you get to an environment, so you aren't just like, oh, yeah, squirrel, oh, mushroom? Is it the gear you take first, or do you have a clearer idea in your mind as to what you might want the outcome to be, really?
I think quite often if I'm working on a project, I know I have certain things that I want to include in a project overall. But if it's something new that I take that I'm doing and I'm not quite sure, I will quite often set myself a boundary of some sort before I go out, like a lens, or whether I'm going to shoot in portrait or landscape, or whether I might put my camera on black and white. I've got a really good activity that I do quite a lot when people say, how do I get started with this? And I say, you know what, just take your phone out or your point and shoot. Doesn't matter what pictures you're going to make. But make a first photo, something that speaks to you when you start your dog walk or walk around the park, and have a look at the back of that photo and ask yourself, what about that photo is it that you actually like? And then challenge yourself to make 4 or 5 photos more on your walk. Again, no expectations other than that they have to match in some way, absolutely any way possible. And a bit like everything else, the more you practice this technique, the better. So I think that's a really, really fun exercise because literally you can take it with your phone. The first time I did it, I shot through 2 trees. And so all the other photos I made on the walk, I photographed through things. That was as simple as that. My camera was already in black and white, and I did use portrait mode for the first time. And so I was like, well, make them black and white, portrait, and shoot through. And there I had a set just like that without really,
Yeah.
I won't say without having to try, but, it's not a game of bingo trying to tick off as many many cohesive things as possible. But that's a really nice exercise to get started with, to
It
try.
gets people out of their comfort zone as well, doesn't it? Of just doing the same thing because it's so easy to do what you've always done, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's always, it's very easy to, especially when you turn up on a location and you're in awe of what it is. It also it kind of focuses you a little bit, and it gives you a chance to just kind of settle rather than being worried about missing on everything.
Thank you. We should have tried that when we organised our London trip.
Yeah,
Rather just throwing people out of the
practice what I
Thames.
preach, and I always say to everybody, do what I say, don't do what I do.
It feels like ages ago since that walk. It was wonderful.
I know.
Really enjoyed it. Really, really enjoyed it. Okay, thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for sharing your 5 from the archive and also for creating a nice title page as well. That's very organised of you. Well done. Well done. Please do start whenever you're ready to share the images that are important to you. Thank you.
I am going to start with this one. It's a photo I made probably about 3 years ago now, and it's a photo that I made literally 20 steps from my back garden. And as I was just saying to you, Mark, a lot of these photos, it's not specifically just the photo that I want to share with you, but actually talk around the reason why I've included the photo. And the reason being is that I have photographed in this same location for 13 years while I've been living here in the Netherlands. And I continue to make photos that are new and different every time I sort of go out of my door. And basically, because it's right outside my door, I look out and I see what the weather's doing. When I get a beautiful sunset, I go out and I photograph it. When I get the sunrise, it's not very often I get up, especially for sunrise, to be honest. I quite like sunsets. And then I go and explore. And this is actually an ICM and multiple exposure image together. And so what I did, the ICM image is about 4 seconds long. And I actually was sort of channeling my Eric Malm a little bit, where I was holding the camera momentarily and then I moved it a little bit. So that's why you still have a little bit of detail and you can still see the tree trunks just down on the bottom right there. And then I moved the camera in a bit of a sweeping movement. And the reason why I did this, I'd stood outside and I'd photographed the sunset, and eventually the sun disappeared and the light and the colour disappeared. But what was left was that like little line of light in the background there and this inky blue sky all around it. So I was just exploring how I could sort of blend that with the trees that I absolutely love. Now, I did mention this is multiple exposure, and what you see at the bottom of the image is a second element where I actually move the camera really, really fast and really with big movements. And so I actually captured just the light. And so the bit at the bottom is actually the light that you see in the middle of the picture as well. But it looks like a bit of mist here. And in Holland, we get mist coming up in the evenings. As the sun goes down, the mist comes up. So, like I said, the reason I've included this photo, 1, I absolutely love the colours. 2, it does actually form the basis of my whole website colourway. We actually use this photo and all the colours in it to design my website, which was quite cool. 3, it's a photo and a location that I have made so many times over 13 years. And 4, it's made with all my favourite techniques.
The thing is, it's also a great lesson in not needing to go very far to get wonderful images, isn't it? And about working with what you've got.
Yeah, it's something I believe in deeply, that you don't need to. I'm with the best of them. I love going on travelling, but I do enjoy the fact that I can step just outside my door and make these. And it actually takes the pressure off me, which allows me to play and explore a bit more, I think, rather than being really worried about missing the shot. I just go out and I know I've made a photo here, like for 13 years. I have so many pictures. In fact, I'm going to put an album up on my website, I think, of all the photos that I've made in this location, or not all of them, but a selection. And I just love the fact that I can just keep being inspired regardless of the fact that it's the same place.
Images from the doorstep, or images on the doorstep. Absolutely great album title, really is.
Yeah, thank you. I'll keep that one.
Yeah, I'll copyright that. You said that you've chosen this to be your colorways on your website, and I know you have. I can see the images and the tones, the colors and the tones in this really clearly. What is it about the blue that really attracts you? because we often find ourselves attracted to particular colours, don't we? Hence, I've got blue behind here as well. But what is it about the blue that really attracts you to a sunset image like this?
That's a really, really good question. All my life, I've loved blue. Blue has been my favourite colour until I went to New Zealand back some 10 years ago. And then I actually flipped to green for a while. And I do love green. But blue, I don't know. I think I just love this blue specifically, this inky blue. I've just always loved blue. And I just think all the different tones in here, you get everything from the lightest blue through to like almost blacky blue. And when you combine it, anybody that knows me will know that my favourite colourways are actually cream and blue or brown and blue. So this just combines those two together. So I think it's not necessarily just the blue. It's actually the fact that you get this kind of yellow and blue together that is my favourite colourways of all time.
Yeah, I can see why. Thank you. It's a beautiful image. It really is. A great one to start us off as well.
The next one is sunrise in the tulip fields, apart from the fact that these aren't actually tulips, these are hyacinths. Now, if I could do smelly vision here with you, I would, because this is a photo that I made this year. And this was at about 6 o'clock in the morning. The birds were singing. I was out with a group and we'd gone out specially. And these hyacinths, if you've ever smelled one hyacinth, imagine standing in a field that literally you can't imagine how many there are. And it was really still and there was a little bit of mist there. So this is a photo that represents 13 years of going to visit the tulip fields and how much the weather can play a major part in some of the photos that I make. Now, the tulip fields are actually about 2 hours drive from where I live. So it's not a case of looking out the window and deciding to go. If I'm going to go and make photos in the tulip fields at sunrise, I need to do a lot of planning. And does go back to I do actually have to plan for this one quite a lot. And I watch the weather like a hawk. Or, as happens every now and again, and I got so lucky this year on my tulip tours, every one of my tours that wanted a sunrise got a sunrise this year. And this was one I was out with 4 lovely ladies. And yeah, it was just absolutely amazing. Now, I love this photo for the colours. I have worked it quite a lot to bring back enough light in it. I actually use a tripod for it, which I don't very often as well. I always say to my clients and people that are out with me, you need to decide whether you're going to stand right in the middle of a line that's going up there, or you stand between 2 lines, like in the dirt patch. And then you need to make a choice about how much you're going to put in the image and what you're going to leave and what is actually of interest in there. And in this image, like the sunrise was just absolutely beautiful. And then we'd got just like a little bit of dew on the flowers, which was just making them sing with the colours, and the light was just so soft. So this kind of sums up how lucky I am to be living here at the moment and how much I have enjoyed photographing the tulips each year. So as I said, Mark, some of these photos aren't just about the photo themselves. It's about what I bring into my photography while I'm here living.
Yeah. And that's why it's here to hear about the emotion as well, isn't it? We can all put some of our better images on, or some of our images that stand out, but actually it's much more interesting hearing about the story behind them.
Yeah.
It really is. Without asking for too many of your insider tips, because I know people on your workshops will get all of those insider tips. What kind of things do you look for the night before or perhaps a few days before to try and get as much as you can from these sunrise shots? What kind of planning do you put in?
Okay, so I don't know whether it's the same in all countries, but here in the Netherlands, basically, mist comes when you've had a little bit of rain the day before, and then you're going to end up with a warm day the following day. And so that's when you're most likely to get mist here in Holland. And it comes up and it just lays basically just above the fields here around where I live. It's quite predictable, to be honest. So I watch what's actually happening in the weather, but I also watch the weather forecast like a hawk as to whether the sun is actually going to be rising. So I look for the sunshine sign rather than any kind of suggestion of cloud with the sunshine. So I'm also looking to guarantee that it's worth getting out of bed as well. That's my biggest tip. Only get out of bed if you really know that the sun's going to shine. And also I have everything ready with regards to my camera equipment. So I always have my camera ready with the lens on. I have my tripod ready with the attachment attached to the bottom of my camera. I have my batteries full. I have my SD cards ready. And if I know it's going to be really early on, I have everything in the car ready to go, to be honest. I live quite rural, so I don't have to worry too much about what I leave in the car. But that's probably not to be recommended, to be fair.
No, probably not. But actually, I can see why this image means so much to you from an emotional point of view as well, because it represents an almost chocolate box image,
Mm.
doesn't it, of the Netherlands? And
Yeah.
it's what we perceive it to be. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Beautiful image.
Yeah. Thank you. Right. The next one. Right. Now I'm going to take you back. Now, this is from the archive. So I thought I would take you back to one photo that represents a set of 20 photos. Now, I think you probably, Mark, have seen these photos like a million times, as have most people that turn into any of my presentations, because there's a set that form the basis of where my creative photography started. And that is a set of 20 images that I made for my Master Craftsman qualification back in 2016. And yeah, this was where my multiple exposure journey actually started. Until I started on creating these images for the project, I didn't even know about multiple exposures. And I just fell upon it in my phone, actually. It wasn't even trying on Photoshop or anything. And the whole concept of the set of images that I made was I wanted to make the woodlands harder to walk through. I wanted people to linger a little longer in front of my photos and wonder how they could, dare I say, get through them. Actually, sort of imagine yourself there. How easy is it to walk yourself through the photo? And so the original photo is the yellow areas and the blue and the dark sort of lines at the back, which was actually an ICM woodland image made at sunrise in the woodlands with lots of mist. But I felt that you could walk straight through between the trees, which gave it a lovely, soft, gentle, very relaxing feel. However, I wanted to make it more complicated. So I actually put a second image which had textural woodland trees here that you can see in the front on the right-hand side. And so what that does, it almost creates a sort of bar effect, almost a grid effect that you kind of like go between, and then you can kind of wander through the trees. And that was the whole idea behind the whole set of images, was to make images that just demanded the viewer sort of question what they were actually looking at. And I really, really enjoyed bringing them all together. They were all square. They all include this lovely yellow-blue colorway in all kinds of levels, golds, blues, purples. And they all had a base image of trees, which were ICM. And then I included textures on top, which were some were trees, some were grasses. They're all natural textures that I brought together. As I say, there's a set of 20 of these, and these have lasted me well. I mean, what we took 2025 now. And so we're going 9 years. I just exhibited these in London in the summer, and I continue to use them to teach with because I'm so very, very proud of this set. Even 9 years on from when they were made, I still love them to bits. So this is just one. So you told me I couldn't include 6, so I definitely wasn't going to include 20 at this point.
You could have sneakily put 20 on the page, although I'm not sure how we would have got through that. I'm interested as well is that the fact that this has endured so much in a positive way because of not only what it means to you with regards to when you started to use multiple exposure, but the method of multiple exposure to make things more complex or more deeper or more interesting, using natural textures. There are so many reasons that these are powerful images, aren't they? I don't think it's just happened by accident that they are still of value after this length of time.
No, I think do you know what? When I made this set, I was so in love with what I was doing. Not that I'm not in love with what I'm doing now, but it was so new, it was so fresh, it was exciting to me. It was just an exploration, to be honest, when I put these together. Every time I brought 2 images together, it was like, wow, look at that. That just works so well. And I think because they were crafted with a lot of love and a lot of attention to detail. Yeah, I do think, I still look at them today and I feel a bit bad that I still keep dragging them out after 9 years. But to be honest, I still think that if I wanted to try and put one on the wall of a hotel or somebody came to me tomorrow, I think they would still be of much as value now as they were 9 years ago. And I think that's actually quite a special thing, like you say, for them to have endured that time so long.
Thank you. And from your perspective as well, you obviously don't want to go back and recreate things because that's not how art works like that. Just recreating it isn't the same value. But do you still get that same emotive feeling when you go back into these environments with that same mindset, knowing that you've achieved, you can do it, basically, knowing that you've done it before and it works so well? Do you still have that kind of engaged mindset like that?
Yeah, I think so. And I think I'm always, like you said just then, I'm always on the lookout for trying new things. And I think that's why, these last, but they have been superseded by other things. But if I quite often go into the woods, and because I know how to do this, it's actually a really enjoyable thing. Sometimes knowing what you're doing is actually really, really nice because you do it and you enjoy it rather than it being too challenging. Other times the challenge is what it's all about. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a balance between achievement and challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. Thank you. It's getting into that zone, isn't
Yeah.
it? We won't get into the tech of it, but getting into that zone. Thank you.
Yeah.
Wonderful image. Thank you.
Okay. I will take you on to my embracing trees. Now, again, this represents a whole project, and this is my most recent project, but even my most recent project is now last October. And this represents one image from my new book, which was If the Woods Whispered, Would You Hear Them? What started out as a project to document like horrible things in the woodlands happening, like the trees being chopped down, I actually ended up spending a year just wandering the woodlands and exploring and seeing what I could see. And I started to see relationships between trees, communities between trees in the woodlands. And these trees are still standing up in the woods and they're not alive. They're actually dead, but they're still standing next to each other, which I find absolutely fascinating. And it looks as though they're embracing, depending on the sort of angle you take. And if I do a full photo rather than a sort of zoomed in one, you can actually see maybe they're doing the tango, maybe they're having a hug, maybe they're having an embrace. And I just found it absolutely fascinating over a year how my mindset changed in the woodlands from documenting to actually going and visiting my favourite characters and going looking for characters in the woodlands. So this image represents going into a location and just seeing what you can see and being willing to photograph anything that actually takes your kind of piques your interest, basically. If you think you like what it is, then you should make a photo of it without worrying about whether it fits with something else or what anybody else might think about it. I still, this makes me smile still. I just think it's such a lovely photo, not blow my own trumpet, but I think it's such a lovely photo because it captures something that we can all recognize in human terms, but is actually happening out in the woods as well. So that was what the whole project ended up being about, was this relationship within the woodlands, but also my relationship within the woodlands with lots of poems and things. So again, this is one image that represents a multitude, like 90 images, I think there are in the book. Do you like this one, Mark?
I really enjoy your book. I was about to say, I'm one of the lucky people who have your book, and I realize I'm not on screen right now, but it's behind me to my right shoulder. So I really enjoyed it. My question to you about this was going to be, when you get into, obviously you spent a year going through this, you spent a long time on this project, and I think it's so obvious that you committed yourself to this because what you saw was fabulous. How did you get to the point where you actually saw it? How long did you have to be in there before you stopped seeing the trees and started to see them as being and doing other things? And I don't mean in the sense of was it months or weeks, but actually when you arrive there, to get into that mindset, because that's a tricky mindset, isn't it? To move away from photographing stereotypically beautiful images that you are so well known for, to really focus on the interaction between natural things.
Yeah, no, it's a really good question, actually. The interesting thing is the way that the whole project started was with an exercise that my mentor gave me, which was to go into the woods and sit myself down and for half an hour journal without even picking up my camera. You would not believe how long that half an hour felt to me. I kept looking at my watch. And when I came out of that half an hour, I picked up my camera and I made a set of about 10 images, which just said exactly what I wanted to say. And I find that is actually kind of, now I don't necessarily go out and journal and do that, but I kind of go in and I spend a lot of time just, when I say a lot of time, I just mean I start generally without my camera in my hands. And I find that helps me to immerse myself into the location rather than into my photography straight away. And so I think that's probably my best tip to give. And I think that would be my best suggestion. If you want to start seeing, don't think about photographing bizarrely. Think about just looking and recognizing. Again, something I teach to everybody that I work with is looking and seeing and recognizing what you are seeing rather than what you think you should be seeing. And I think that's a really powerful thing to take, regardless of whether you do woodland photography, street photography, anything. If you recognize that you're seeing light or you're seeing color or you're seeing shape, then if you can see that or recognize that within yourself before you even pick up the camera, making the images is so much easier. And I'm sure you recognize that with your photography in the street, Mark. Is that something you practice at all? Or
Yeah, well, it's something I probably should do more of, because otherwise what I get sucked into is actually the doing aspect, is making the product, is, this is what I know I can take, therefore I will take it. But I have started to think more about looking and getting into an environment and just waiting, even just for a few minutes,
Right.
to see how that environment evolves and changes and how light moves across that. So yeah, I can see why the journaling aspect is really valuable. And I know that 30 minutes must have felt like forever, like you said, but I can see how that being forced not to act straight away is really valuable.
Yeah, it really was. And it's like I say, it's not something I do every time, but mentally I have it in my head. I remember what a valuable lesson it was. So when I go out, I do, I always just give myself a chance to immerse myself in my surroundings first. And that really is the best way that you can figure out what you
Yeah,
might want to photograph.
absolutely outstanding. And yes, I do see them hugging. I'd love to know if people pop it in the comments as to what these are doing. They're almost dancing and
Yeah.
hugging at the same time. I love it.
Yeah. That's brilliant. Right. I think this is my last picture. Now,
Yes.
this is Loch Katrine or Loch Katrine, depending on where you come from, whether you're Scottish or not. I am obviously clearly not Scottish. We went to this location on a creative retreat last year with a lovely group of people. It was the first time I'd done anything like this. We actually combined photography and art together for a week, and we all just stayed in a big house and mucked in with food and everything. It was really, really wonderful. Why have I included this photo? It is so different to Holland. It's so different to the Netherlands. Now, if you imagine that you've been photographing in one place pretty much for 13 years, I have got so used to flat land, massive landscapes, and trying to find elements to put in my foreground and in the base of my images. I go to Scotland for the first time in my life, to Scotland, my mainland, basically last year. I'd been to Harris and Lewis back in 2016, but this was the first time I'd ever been to the mainland. And I was just in awe. I was absolutely amazed. One, how much I loved it because I was just amazed how different it was. But two, how much I actually felt very much at home, even though I was in the middle of the mountains and the water, which are two things really I have nothing to do with for the last 13 years. And I was actually brought up in Suffolk as well. So I have no mountains there either, or sort of big bodies of water like this. But what I did was I sat myself on a rock at this point on the loch. It was about half an hour walk from where we were staying. And I just watched that sun dance across the loch. And you can just see it in the foreground there, like in that sort of scrabbly light area. If you look at the back of the loch, just before the back of the dark base there, you can just see a little line of light just up there. And so basically what I did was I watched the light dance across the water, and then I moved the camera and I danced with the water and I tried to soften the whole thing off. Now, it's interesting because I love, again, I have included images that I love, but I love this image because it just, one, it takes me back to that moment, but two, it kind of just embraces sort of light, shadows, shapes, forms. And again, you're seeing my colorways coming through time and time again. This was not intentional, but you've got the blues and the browns here. Now, if I was to put this in a camera club competition, people might say, you know what, my eye goes straight to that white bit and it doesn't roam anywhere else. But I'd like to hope that you kind of look at it and are intrigued on where it comes from, and then maybe you kind of wander around the loch. So for me, this just takes me back to that moment sitting on the rock and just like, I literally felt like the weight of the world lifted off my shoulders while I was sat there photographing. And I was very lucky to have a few days there before doing a recce before the group turned up. And I was just out with one other person and we were just like doing our own thing and just taking our own time. And to have the time to just watch and see what was happening. And then the hardest thing was probably picking this image out of all the other ones that I made. But I really, I really enjoyed making this and now looking at it as well. It's not on my wall, but I think I would like to put it on my wall.
I can see that. And it's interesting because the thing around creativity and art is that we all interpret it quite differently, don't we? So until you explained that was a hit of light, if you like, from the sun, I didn't see it as that. I actually thought that was a small sort of rock pool. So I thought it was really interesting when you started to explain that, and it kind of changed my view of it as well. It's really fascinating, and this is why I really enjoy how different people approach their photography. So this is also not only the technique, the approach, but the feeling that you felt at that time when you said that you felt the weight of the world or things just shift from you. So this feeling, this picture represents that to you as well.
Yeah. And it's interesting what you said about that because I come across this time and time again with people you don't see, or you assume that everybody sees what you see in your images. And that was just a classic case in point that I never imagined people would not see what I was seeing. And so it's really fascinating hearing that from you, Mark, actually, because, while I think it's obvious, it quite clearly isn't obvious what it is without the explanation. So
I always thought a great activity, we'd have to anonymize it, but I always thought a great activity would be to put a picture up and sort of say to people, give us 20 words or 30 words on what you see in this image, or what it means, how you move across this image. I'm not sure how we'd ever do it, but I thought it'd be really interesting because we took images, we expect people to see that. And yeah, I think people do work in different ways.
yeah.
Thank you. So how long, from this point of view, from this sort of perspective, how long were you in this environment taking this image for? Was this something that, again, you just saw and took? Was it part of a series? Was it your sort of approach to this? I'm interested.
Well, it's actually quite interesting because when I went, we were doing a recce, so we had 3 days before everybody else turned up. And so we walked up to this point and we'd done it a couple of days. And this was actually the third day we walked past the same point. And I said to Anya, who I was with, I said, I'm going to sit on this rock and I'm just going to sit and watch because I think I'm loving the light, basically, I said. And so, so this was the third day that I'd seen this. And sometimes it's very easy to walk past things and go, oh, yeah, I'll give it another time, or it's not important, or maybe somebody else won't like the photo I make. And at this point, I just felt that I wanted to just spend the time on my own because I have such, as you alluded to very early on, I have such a busy life. And it was just so lovely to just sit there in silence, apart from the birds and the wind, and just watch and photograph. And I think I probably made, I don't know, maybe I made 50 photos as the light went across the water. I have a set actually on my website. I think it's called Loch Light Dancers, and it's all on different, it's not just this location, but it's the way that the light moved across this loch and a couple of others that I visited while I was in Scotland. So it is part of a bigger set. And I probably sat there, I sat there watching probably for half an hour that day on that rock, but it wasn't the first time I'd passed this location. It was something that I'd spotted before, and I thought, I loved the composition and the way it was all set up, and then keeping that little tree in the left-hand side. I did try straight shots. I tried multiple exposure. I tried a bit of everything here, and then deciding how much of the bottom to keep in, whether the sort of foreground stayed in or not, and how much the land and where on the loch the light fell. So there's a lot of decisions to make as far as which picture to choose, but also, just exploring as it happened, making these images.
Yeah, thank you. And the interesting thing for me is that it was the third time you'd seen it. So you've obviously observed it or saw it the first time, evaluated it the second time, and the third time you thought, I can't pass this again.
Yeah, probably something like that.
Thank you so much. Absolutely outstanding series of images, Charlotte. I really, really appreciate you sharing these with us. And so varied as well. So varied.
Yeah.
So where's your next focus going to be? Because these have been so wildly different. What kind of things are you working on right now?
Yeah, well, I bet you're wondering where the horses are, aren't you?
Well, I am, yeah. I was thinking about that, yeah.
Yeah, because last time when we were planning this, I was actually photographing horses in the Camargue at the time, I think, when we said, and I said, I'm bound to have pictures in there. There's an interesting story of the Camargue. That is actually my next project I'm going to be working on, is photographing the horses in the Camargue probably over the next year or so. I'm hopefully going to go back a couple of times and develop a bit of a project there with those. It was something that I'd always wanted to do, but I thought it was a bit cliche. So I'd kind of gone, no, everybody else is doing it. And so I'm not going to. And then eventually I found somebody to go and work with and thought, I'm going to give it a go. Interestingly, I really enjoyed making the straight sort of obvious images just because I couldn't pass them up. But I very, very quickly moved into the intentional camera movement with the horses, which again is that lovely balance between challenge and knowledge bringing together. So watch this space. It's not going to appear very soon, but it's something that's the next big project that I'm going to be working on personally with the horses and the ICM. And it's something I've been doing for the last 6 years. I did actually start a project 6 years ago to document horses, and I've been learning a bit like everything. I think it's really useful to keep practicing and learning and sort of then building up the skills and then be able to bring it out eventually in a emotional or emotive sort of way of photographing rather than just making sort of record shots, basically, which is what I don't want to do. So that's the next project. And as you know, I'm planning on moving back to the UK at the moment. So that's the biggest project right now.
Just, nothing like keeping yourself busy, is there?
Yeah. And then all the other photo tours and things like that. So I'm off to France very shortly, and then I'll be back in the Netherlands in November for a Woodland tour, and I'm in Norfolk in September for a tour of Woodlands and Waves, and we're doing the birds this year as well at Snettisham. So that's again something a little bit. I love photographing birds, and so yeah, that's another one of those photos I would have loved to. I think you need to do another series, Mark, and it's an archive of at least 10 from the archive rather than 5 from the archive, because I had so many pictures to try and choose from, because like you say, the variation in the style of photography I do is massive. So I didn't want to just be sort of all ICM photos, because I am more than just an ICM photographer, even though that is what I love to do most.
Charlotte, thanks so much for those 5. And as well done for not squeezing a 6th in, or indeed 26, or any panels you were looking at. Well done. And the reason we couldn't do 10 from the archive is that it doesn't rhyme. 5 from the archive has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? So 10 from the archive didn't work quite so well, but I'll take the feedback. I'll take the feedback.
Yeah. 10 from my life, maybe. I don't know, something like that. Yeah.
10 from my life. There you go. That's the next one. So Charlotte, did you have someone that you wanted to recommend that we all go and have a look at as well?
I want to give a shout out to David Duchemin. I have been a massive fan of his for so long. I was lucky enough to meet him at the photo video show. You know how excited I was. And anybody that saw Instagram knew how excited I was. I followed his work for a long time, and I love his work personally, but his ethos towards photography and his sharing of knowledge and experience as well, I think is just second to none. He has a most wonderful podcast called A Beautiful Anarchy that everybody can get hold of and listen to. It's like 10-minute bite-sized chunks. I used to go walking in the mornings and listen to them and come back invigorated, enthused, inspired for the rest of the day. And yeah, I can't recommend his books highly enough, and any of his courses as well. He's just a really, really super trainer and teacher. So he's my recommendation for everybody else.
Thank you very much. We shall add to his millions of followers.
Yeah, please do. I'll be delighted. Maybe I'll get a free book.
There you go. There you go. Now, we've got you back later on this year, haven't we, with Camversation? We've penciled in some dates, and we'll send out more information on that when we get all of that content sorted. So there's no pressure to tell us anything about that now, just to let people know that you are coming back to share with us more of your wonderful work as well.
Yeah, and I look forward to it, and I'm enjoying being part of the community, Mark. And I love, when I have time, I absolutely love watching all these amazing speakers you have. I mean, if I didn't have to teach every evening, I'd be watching your webinars every evening, to be honest. And like so many people that I work with and teach, they sometimes say, well, I can't come to your thing because I'm on Camversation, and tonight there's someone I just can't miss. So I'm just going to have to miss yours. So it's just so lovely to be part of. And I think you've got a unique community, and it's just, really, really lovely. So thank you for creating and including me.
No, not at all. It's a super, everybody's welcome. It's a super inclusive community. I'm sorry that we clash.
Well, when you're on nearly every night and I'm on nearly every night, it's bound to happen, isn't it? We're both just too successful and too popular.
I might have to cut this bit out.
Yeah, please do.
Oh, thank you so much, Charlotte. So I look forward to hearing about all of your Camargue horses, all of your future work as well. I look forward to seeing you on Camversation later, and I'll put links onto your website at the end of this so people can jump onto your workshops and look at your offerings, because it's wonderful.
Yep, brilliant. Thank you so much for having me, Mark.
Really appreciate it. Take care.
Bye.